Lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien, has ICE followed you lately? I feel like I need to ask everybody this question now. Have you been followed by ICE?
No, I have not.
I'm a little jealous. I aspire one day to be tracked by ICE. It's all so stupid, my friend. Thanks for calling in this morning, though. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Speaking of stupid, the Minneapolis City Council Committee delayed action on Tuesday on renewing liquor licenses for 2 Minneapolis hotels that have housed federal immigration officers. Now, according to the story, they've already run through all of the necessary requirements. This would be an 8-5 vote delaying the decision on the licenses for Canopy by Hilton in the Mill District and Depot Renaissance Hotel. And they delayed their liquor licenses until the next meeting on the 17th. The council has also voted to schedule a public hearing so residents can weigh in on the matter. Now, you did have 5 members of the council that were against this, but can they do this? I mean, this sounds a lot like discrimination to me, but you're the lawyer extraordinaire, not me.
Well, John, I do a lot of work with, in the liquor law area and a lot of hospitality clients. And, I read that story, and there's even a reference that the city attorney and the city staff told the city council that they meet the requirements for having their liquor licenses renewed, because it just comes up every year. A holder of a liquor license in the city of Minneapolis has to have it renewed. And they also mentioned that you need actual facts to deny the renewal. And so, I'm going to guess that the hotel chains are probably going to put up with, one more round of this nonsense so they can have their listing session with the community and tell how that them housing these agents has wounded them emotionally or something. I don't know. But if this goes further, if the city council goes against the advice of their council and staff and were to deny these licenses, they're going to have a lawsuit on their hands. But the other problem here, John, is, when politics gets injected into these types of routine decisions, it sends a message to not only the hospitality industry but the business community at large that it could be them someday. And it ends up being a chilling effect on anyone that's thinking of opening a business. Why would you want to open it in Minneapolis in case you end up on the wrong side of some political issue?
Yeah.
That they behave like this.
Well, as you mentioned, talking with lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien, Amy Lingo, the city's manager for business licenses, said the hotels can continue to serve liquor until a decision is made by the council. The 5 no votes came from council members who worried the council has no grounds to deny the renewals. One of them said that she'd received many emails from people about the license renewals, but she said the license renewals had nothing to do with who stays at the hotels and would be discriminatory. She said the council shouldn't give people false hope that the council can deny the licenses. Why are we setting ourselves up for another legal settlement? I'm speaking to what you were saying, Jeff. So it seems as if, it's pretty obvious. If you have 5 of this radical left-wing council across the board that are actually going and saying similar things to you, then it would appear to me that, yeah, those other 8 council members are absolutely in the wrong and moving forward on this.
Yeah, and then those kind of comments just become fodder for, legal action. And, the interesting thing, John, is, the members of that council and folks in the kind of similar ilk are always calling the president a dictator and all these things. But, this is the type of action you get in dictatorships, the government choosing winners and losers and favoring some businesses over others on a whim. This is the kind of arbitrary decision-making that you get in a dictatorship. So it's kind of ironic that they criticize the federal government, and at the same time, they're acting in the way that an actual dictator behaves.
Committee Chair Auren Chowdhury said she felt it was important for the council to have more discussion of the licenses and give the public a chance to hear their stories. She went on to say Hundreds of constituents have reached out about the hotels, like it matters. She said that the council has revoked licenses before for problem businesses and mentioned a case where a Border Patrol agent was arrested on suspicion of drunken driving while assigned in Minnesota. I failed to see the connection here to her attempt at a justification for at least withholding these licenses, if let alone revoking these licenses, based off of how she talked about these past problem cases and the case of this Border Patrol agent. Is there a thread there at all, Jeff?
Well, no, the reasons that, and having been through this process for obtaining licenses and renewals, the grounds for not renewing a liquor license are things like, a series of violations. Like, let's just say theoretically, this agent that was drunk and driving. If the bar or restaurant or wherever he was overserved him and maybe had multiple violations for overserving patrons, or you get an underage person, that they run a sting and they catch somebody, or there's got to be some sort of, usually you'd have to have a series of adverse actions from the licensing department and the enforcement side of things before somebody would lose their liquor license or not get it renewed. So it doesn't sound like, this doesn't sound like there's any grounds whatsoever to, again, legal counsel and staff said they meet the requirements. So obviously they don't have a history of violations that would seem to me to justify not renewing their licenses. So I don't think they have any legal grounds to deny their licenses.
We had a story, just real quick, Jeff. I know we didn't talk about this, but I played audio from Fox 9. You've got Minnesota school districts that are now suing ICE for and wanting them to stop enforcement near the schools. I don't know if you had a chance to hear that. I was curious if you think that there's any sort of legal precedence for these school districts to actually sue to stop ICE from doing any sort of law enforcement near the school. I'd have to imagine, let me add one other part to it. I have to imagine that based off of some of the rulings that have taken place with the big lawsuits that, like Keith Ellison went and posed against the Trump administration trying to stop Operation Metro Surge altogether, it would seem to me that this would be a complete waste of time for school districts because they're kind of arguing the same thing that Keith Ellison was arguing, right?
Yeah, I think it sounds like kind of an argument in a similar vein, and we know that it was the judge that went against that kicked out that denied the injunctive relief for Ellison's lawsuit was a Biden appointed federal judge, and that if anybody's read the opinion, you probably talked about it. Some of the language in the judge, this is a Biden appointee, in the opinion says that Minnesota's sanctuary policies basically created the chaos that we're dealing with. And so, yeah, I don't see this. I mean, if you can't win that one, I don't see why do it by doing enforcement near a school is going to be any different than doing enforcement in the state generally.
Lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien, thanks for the time and the expertise, and I really appreciate it. Good talking with you this morning.
Thanks for having me on, John. Always good to be on.